Hey EE93, what is Season 0? First off, I admit that the order and history of enterprising engines can be very confusing. Episodes have been taken down and re-uploaded, stories have been completely redone, Season 2 isn't even complete while a Season 3 exists, and there's a Season 0 I've never explained. So yeah, that's cute. For the most part, Season 0 is a prequel season that takes place before Season 1. Episodes in Season 1 to 3 are all numbered, but the episodes in Season 0 are not. This is because episodes in Season 0 can appear in any part of the timeline. Season 0 is also not limited to a set number of episodes, like how Season 1 was limited to the traditional 26. I don't think there's a pilot episode, or a finale, because of how far things could go in any direction. Like Grand Puff, it can go on forever. It is an anthology of stories that came before, and in some ways, has a lot more variety. While Season 1 only features one adaptation, buffer bashing because I was hyped the Railway series made a new installment, Season 0 features many more. A lot of these adaptations come from the Railway series and the magazines. Old Groner was the first adaptation I did. Then after that, I did Snow Problem, Cab Over Wheels, and Whistle Trouble. While they were faithful adaptations for the most part, I did take some creative liberties here and there to make them a little more interesting.
Oh, what fun!
Unannounced, Season 0 received its own playlist after these videos were made sometime in 2018. After this, I started making original Season 0 stories and even did a remake of Duncan Gets Spooked, my favorite episode of the TV series. In 2020, when we were all kind of stuck, I started making a lot more Season 0 episodes than anything else. I think 10 of the 13 stories I completed that year were Season 0 stories, and more original stories came out at this time alongside Audrey and fan-written adaptations. It is important to note, no matter if they're Railway series adaptations, TV series style stories, or original stories, all of Season 0 is canon to enterprising engines. The canon of enterprising engines has always been blended. It's a series where Ivo Hugh and Fearless Freddy, and Stanley and Smudger can coexist. It's as fun as it is paradoxical. There are details I've included to help define what era we're in. One of them is the generation of Sir Topham Hatt seen in the video. In Coffee Break, we see Chief Engineer Topham Hatt and the Fat Director. In Duck and Dukes and A Good Turn for the Worse, we see Charles Topham Hatt. In Old Groner, we see Sir Stephen Topham Hatt, the generation of Topham seen in Season 1. By Season 3, we see Richard Hatt preparing to take up the mantle. The Thin Controller's portrayal is also an indicator of the era we're in. We'll see Mr. Peter Sam in Duck and Dukes. In Shrill Handle, we'll see a man that resembles Mr. Percival. But what does that mean? Sometime between Shrill Handle and Duncan Gets Spooked, the Thin Controller changes from his signature TV series look. This change was deliberate. I've never outright said this, until now, but the Thin Controller in Enterprising Engines is not Mr. Percival, but a sprightly Roger Sam that took up the mantle in 1980. At that time, he was a younger man in a managerial position that resembled Mr. Percival. Something happened around the Season 5 era that caused him to embrace a more free-spirited side of himself. While I try to honor every medium of Thomas canon, this is one of the cases where I deviated a bit, and it's not the first. There was a time where I almost killed off Mavis, and that would have completely changed the status quo and the expectation as to how the series would stay true to the direction of the source materials. Besides these nods and variations, Season 0 also has more variety when it comes to writers. So it's not just me, the Reverend W. Audrey, Christopher Audrey, and the Buried Truck. Cynic on Rails, Chase Theed, and Terrier 55 Stepney have also pitched in to write stories, and I bother TARDIS Rescue and Luke Ryan quite a bit about the history of Sodor and how railways actually work, so I can tell stories about an oily man in a shark costume seducing a jury. There's always more to learn. And in terms of script collaboration, it's not even limited to them. There are other projects that are still unfinished, but they're certainly not half-baked. If you know, you know. Most of my videos are collaborative in some way, which I am so grateful for, but Season 0 probably has the most directors too.
Va-va-voom!
Heisel Productions teamed up with me to film a Ring of the Bell, Duck and Dukes, On Schedule, and E2 Brute. He's a cool guy who ain't afraid of no ghosts, and if all goes as planned, we might see Crimson 2091 and Mr. Conductor Fan 1406 as well. And now seems like a good time to clarify that young Tucker was not restored from the scrap husk of Timothy the Ghost Engine, but a different E2 entirely. The little faded zero on his side was just meant to be an Easter egg. I may have to tell that story someday. Another special case, but one of the stories included in the Season 0 lineup was a gift. The story was Mike's Dog Days, written by the Buried Truck shortly after my dog Watson passed away. It was a beautiful gesture that I'm very grateful to feature as part of this world. But why have a Season 0?
Oh no, why, Peterson? Why would you even?
What's the point? This wasn't the goal when I started making these videos. But I think Season 0 is about showing what came before and becoming. I also think it started because it was hard for me to make videos while I was in the Thomas Creator Collective, and adapting Railway series stories was something I needed to do for myself at the time. I don't think some of the stories really add that much to the lore of Enterprising Engines specifically, but as time went on, this intention became more prevalent. I think prequel shows like Better Call Saul and the Dark Crystal series Netflix did have only added to this inspiration. With future content, it's definitely the goal going forward. There are also some things I haven't mentioned yet that might be fun to come back to. So, yeah, I'm intrigued by the idea of what came before and becoming. What were we before? What choices or events made the characters the way they were the day we met them? I can't take credit for always having this intent, but answering these questions delivers excitement and satisfaction in what I watch and what I work on.
Well, you just keep telling yourself that.
So, what is the future of Season 0? As of April 2023, I am currently working on a large project for Season 2 and 2 side stories that will be part of Season 0. One of them takes place before July 2000, and the other takes place shortly before 2011. I've chosen to focus on these 2 stories because of what they add to the series as a whole. So yeah, Season 0. Some stories are James groaning about being old, but others may be more connected to future stories than meets the eye. And I'll end with a quote. This is the culmination of everything that came before, but it is not the end. Milk Tanker Media. See ya!